Hey everybody, Seth clicked the wrong button again. That dirty rat. Depriving you all of another video episode of Butter No Parsnips. We're sorry about him, but we'll be back on screen next week. Thanks for your patience and enjoy the show. Kyle, it's a niche question, but if anyone has an answer, it's you.
Thanks.
Is there any music that you really enjoy, but some might consider abrasive?
Oh, I mean, all of the music that I enjoy. Wow, it's really, truly a perfect question for me. I mean, honestly, you know what I listen to 78% of the time that I'm listening to music?
I mean, I do, but tell the audience.
Okay, so it's basically soundtracks to Nintendo 64 music. It's pretty much all I listen to. Almost exclusively Grant Kirkhope, who's a composer, a British composer who wrote music for the Banjo-Kazooie games, and there was a Donkey Kong game in there. I listen to it constantly, and I hum the tunes like I think it's always in my head.
Yeah, but you like the soundtracks that have a lot of like computer noises that don't really sort of sound like instruments anymore.
I love computer noises. I love mouth noises, you know, anything that just sounds like, wow, is this guy having a stroke? That's my kind of music, you know?
Yeah, where it's debatable whether it feels like music anymore.
Oh, it's not music. It never has been music, but it's music to my soul.
It's music to Kyle's soul. You know what's music to my soul?
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Emily Moyers and Kyle Imperator take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Hey everybody, welcome to Butter No Parsnips. I'm Kyle Imperator.
And I'm Emily Moyers. Kyle, I got a good one.
I'm excited. Is this going to be a music-related episode? Oh, okay. Well, now I hate it.
It will eventually become clear why I asked what I asked, but...
okay. Is this an abrasive-related episode?
That might be better. Do you want to hear the word?
Yes, please.
Kyle, the word I have this week is Charivari, or more commonly, chivalry.
No.
Sorry, chivalry. Charivari.
No. That makes no sense. Chivalry?
No. Yeah. So both the spelling and the pronunciation of this word vary. Okay. It is most commonly spelled as you see here, and in English, at least, it is conventionally pronounced chivalry. Sort of, I've been approaching it like jamboree, like how you hit the last syllable.
Oh, I always say jamboree.
Well, you don't say like jamboree, you know?
Yeah, I got it. Chivalry. But it's spelled the same.
It often, yes.
I hate this, Emily. I hate this so much.
It's rough. It's rough.
So it's chivalry or Charivari?
Yeah. I'm going to try to stick to chivalry, but I'm going to be looking at it spelled like this, so I might not remember to say chivalry as I'm going through this outline.
Okay. Is this a noun? Please tell me it's a noun.
It is a noun.
Okay,
it can be a verb, but don't focus on that.
I never do. Okay, chivalry. Wow. I mean, it's got to be either French or, I don't know, Arabic.
No, it is French.
It's French. Chivalry. Yeah. Chivalry. Okay. I'm going to guess, just off the tip of my tongue, chivalry is a guy who talks too much at parties.
Oh, I like that. That's not what it means, but I like it.
Give me a hint.
The hint I have is shame.
Shame?
Yeah.
Oh, like, there's a word that's coming to mind. It's not chartreuse. That's a color. Charlemagne. No, that's Charles.
I don't even know what you're trying to get to.
Yeah, me either, honestly. Okay, chivalry then is, oh, God.
Yeah, this is hard.
Oh, wait, so is it countable? Is it like many chivalries, or is it just the
chivalry?
Many chivalry? So a chivalry is just a like a secret that you don't want to come out.
Interesting. No.
All right, Emily. I literally am stumbling here.
This
Please.
was a tough one. It was tough to guide you here. Chivalry is the noisy banging of pots and pans as a mock serenade intended to ridicule or humiliate someone or someone.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
What?
Yep. It's like just a cacophony of "we don't like you."
Okay. I mean, listen. I'm along for the ride. I'm down to do this.
This one is a ride. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me.
As a verb, you can chivalry someone, meaning to serenade them with a chivalry. And by extension, it can also
I just want to say, I know I'm cutting you off here.
Go for it.
But to serenade somebody with a chivalry, it sounds like you're obscuring the truth about what is actually happening, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's sort of a mock serenade. The word is used in a lot of the things I looked at used to serenade in quotes. Yeah. But by extension, a chivalry can also mean any loud or cacophonous noise or hubbub. A ruckus can be a chivalry. Sure. I have a quote here using it in that sense from 19th century author Charles Kingsley. Quote, "Never was there heard such a noise, row, hubbub, babble, shindy, hullabaloo, stramass, chivalry, and total contempt of dignity and order."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is probably the best string of words ever written.
Yeah.
And you said Charles Kingsley? Is this a Water Babies quote?
It is a Water Babies quote.
God.
If anyone's curious about that book, go back to, I think, episode 2.
Yeah. Autoschediasm.
Yeah, so that is sort of the more extended usable use of that word. We're not going to talk about that use today. We're going to talk about the crazy thing with banging pots and pans.
This is like what you do. This is what I don't know about all of you out there, but this is what my family does on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, you could call that a chivalry, Kyle.
Except we're not mocking anybody. Although, now that I think about it, I'm going to change it so that we are.
You're going to find someone to blame.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, as you correctly guessed from that initial CH pronounced like sh, our English word chivalry / Charivari is a direct borrowing from the French word Charivari. And in the French, you sort of hit both syllables. It's Charivari. Yeah. Same word, we just pronounce it differently. As for the etymology before that, the Oxford English Dictionary says it's derived from a medieval Latin word, Charivaria, but they don't define that word and say that its origin is unknown. American lexicographer Brian A. Garner cites an etymology for that, and it is echoed on Etymonline and on Wiktionary. He defines that medieval Latin word, Charivaria or Charibaria with a B, as headache.
Oh.
Yeah, and Etymonline and Wiktionary discuss an ancient Greek word for headache that derives from karebareia, from the Greek kare, meaning head, from which we get the word cranium, and the Greek word barus, meaning heavy, from which we get the word barometer. Because that's the weight of the air pressure.
Interesting. Yep. So you got a heavy head.
You've got a heavy head. You've got a headache. So that's a possible origin, because when you're hearing the loud banging of pots and pans, you've got a headache.
Absolutely.
But that is not confirmed. Regardless, the French word was borrowed into British English in various dialects and later into North American English as well. And English has a tendency to slur words and clip them short. Thus, over time, chivalry became a common pronunciation. The spelling is sometimes altered to reflect that pronunciation, either Chivaree or Shivaree.
Sure.
But the original spelling, based on the French word, which looks like and should be pronounced Charivari, is still far more common, despite the fact that we pronounce it differently.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it seems like not only is it falsely pushing forward that it is serenading somebody, but it also has a false identity in written words.
False identity as a 3-syllable word.
Yeah. And why would you, I just don't understand how it changed. Charivari is like a self-rhyming word. Like that, How would you
it
not
seems like
want
it would
to
roll
say
off
that?
the tongue.
Yeah. It sounds like, I don't know, a sketch comic. Hey, it's me, Charivari.
Charivari.
Yeah, Charivari. She was in That Woman, right? That's my Catwoman joke. God, it's a Halle Berry reference.
Yeah,
Man.
I had a feeling you were reaching for a Halle Berry movie.
Oof.
I was like, name one Halle Berry movie, Kyle.
Actually, she was in the Flintstones movie. Thank you.
So, chivaries, and yes, you can pluralize them, are a French folk custom which have been documented as early as the 14th century, but probably go back even further than that. It was initially associated with wedding celebrations, banging on pots and pans as a way to sort of lovingly pester newlyweds on their wedding night. I feel like we have a lot of traditions like that still, right?
I mean, I feel like throwing rice at weddings originally didn't mean that, but now it must be just annoying, you know?
Sure. I was also thinking like the clinking glasses thing you do at the wedding.
Oh, yeah, to make them
make out.
kiss.
Yeah. Not kiss. Yeah, and there's also speculations on whether the tying of tin cans to the car originates from this, because that's a sort of noise making as well.
Sure.
Just sort of announces to everyone that these are newlyweds.
That's something we don't really do anymore, but we should bring back.
I would disagree. It's a pretty abrasive sound.
No, we should really, honestly, we should just drive around with cans tied to cars all the time.
Nightmare.
Musical highways.
Oh, a musical. Sure. However, Kyle, this lighthearted custom at some point transitioned as a way of shaming marriages that a community deemed distasteful.
Oh.
Yes. For instance, communities would often look very poorly on widows or widowers who married too soon after their spouse's death, or sometimes just if they married again at all.
Yeah.
So people would stand outside the newlyweds' home, like outside their window, and bang on pots and pans and sing mocking songs night after night in protest of this marriage that they thought was inappropriate.
Oh, dear Lord, they never let up.
Yes. Oftentimes the protesters could be satisfied by if the couple invited them in and offered them food and drink, but only after this couple had been absolutely shamed for the public.
It's blackmail. It's not even shame.
Give us alcohol, you heathens.
What is that? God, I mean, first of all, let off. Their spouse died.
Yeah, but like, what if they only died a month ago? And here they are, shacking up.
You know what?
Disgraceful.
I don't think it's disgraceful, Emily. In fact, I think people should shack up months before their spouse dies. I'm going to start clanging pots and pans until they do it.
Well, the thing is, Kyle, it was not just widows and widowers in these communities' sites. Our favorite French-English dictionary man, Randall Cotgrave, defines a chivalry as, quote, an infamous or infaming ballad sung under the window of an old dotard married that day before unto a young wanton in mockery of them both.
So just like when an old guy marries a young girl.
You got it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, all right.
That one seems fair.
Yeah, we could just bring that one back. We could just do that one.
We should do that now. Wow. Somebody go bang pots and pans outside Paul Hollywood's window.
Yeah. Paul Hollywood? No, what? I was going to say, I don't know, Larry King or...
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of
Jack
options
Nicholson.
of people we could go harass about this.
So many.
Happens a lot. Communities might also chivalry those who weren't married, but in the public opinion should be, such as adulterers or single mothers.
Oh, adulterers, you mean people who just had...
Who had illicit affairs.
Extramarital...
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so people who had extramarital relations, or women who had extramarital relations and now have a child unwed. those people might be harangued. Charivaris were also associated with marriages in which abuse was suspected or known, but we're going to come back to that in a little bit because there's a whole thing. But Kyle, I wanted to ask...
I hate that we have to come back to that, but I mean, hopefully there's a pleasant ending to whatever that conversation's going to be.
We'll see. Kyle, I wanted to ask, who might you want to Charivari? Is there anyone you'd like to really come after?
I mean, I haven't been invited to too many weddings. I've got to be honest. I don't have many in my future.
I mean, I wasn't looking for you to name names, but is there another social faux pas that you'd like to go after? I should note, people did Charivari for other reasons. It's just most of them were marriage related, but not exclusively.
Gotcha. I mean, cutting people in line, that's one that recently has been like really, really bothering me.
Sure.
I was at a doctor's office and it's like, there's really sick people here. And some guy was just like, I guess I'll just walk to the front. And I was just like, come on, dude. Are you kidding me? We've all been waiting here. We just want to go and get better. Yeah. And honestly, I think banging pots and pans right in that moment would have made all of us feel a little better.
Yeah, I'm with that. I would jump on that and say people who merge late in traffic, who will like essentially cut in line with their car.
Yeah. Can we have, instead of a car horn, pots and pans?
They like come out of the top of your car and just like...
It's like those cartoon extendable hands from like Looney Tunes that bang pots and pans. They've got
big
together.
White gloves for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what I have described so far as this punishment, it's not so bad, right? Just people with kitchenware saying, hey, you're an old man. Yeah. And she's a young woman. Gross.
Yeah.
However, as this custom evolved, not only in France, but spreading through mainland Europe and to Britain, it got decidedly more emphatic, shall we say.
Okay.
The noise-making was always a pretty central part of this tradition, about really making a ruckus with the pots and pans, shouting insults, as well as singing mocking songs to really make like a public show of it and I guess express their opinions very strongly.
I'd love to know what kind of songs were appropriate for that sort of mocking.
They're really creative. They're just basically like, this guy sucks and here's why.
Yeah. But in French.
Yes, or in English. This aspect of Charivaring is often called rough music and has equivalents in other cultures and other languages as well. My personal favorite was in German. It's called Katzenmusik because it sounds like cats in heat.
Yeah. Like in all the cartoons. When they can't sleep at night, they throw a boot at a cat on a fence.
Yeah, absolutely. But in addition to this rough music, there were a variety of different customs in different places. We are in the English-speaking world, so we know the most about the English chivaries, so that's what I'm going to dig into. Those often included a sort of riotous parade through town. The victim or victims might be dragged from their homes and paraded through town by force to be mocked and possibly physically harassed in various ways. Yeah, it gets rough here.
I hate this.
Yeah.
This is sad.
It's like when I started looking into this word, I was like, oh, this is a funny thing to bother people with. And then I was like, oh, this is legitimate harassment.
Oh, God.
They didn't always drag the people out. In some cases, instead of the actual person or people, some sort of effigy might be used.
I knew you were going to say effigy. And it's just, when you bring effigies into the mix, it's always downhill from there, you know?
Yeah. Well, can you guess what was the finale when they used an effigy?
They set it on fire?
Yeah, absolutely, they did. Sometimes they'd throw it in a river and fake drown it.
Well,
other times they would burn it.
As we've learned in previous episodes, drowning was always the lesser of the deaths in punishment. So
that's fair. But when it's like a symbol of you, it's rough no matter how you slice it. In other cases, a participant, another community member, might act as a stand-in, and obviously they would not actually be tormented, but they would.
Okay.
We're gonna drown Jerry just 'cause.
All right, Jerry, you're going to stand in for Phil today.
What?
Oh, yeah. What are we doing about Phil today? Oh, we're just going to drown you and burn you and drag you through the streets. But it's not because we hate you, it's because we hate Phil.
That's right. You just look like him.
Okay.
If that person would mock the victim and be singing the songs about whatever they'd done to offend. And that person would often do something which in Northern England was called riding the stang.
Are we talking about like Mustang, or are we talking about like, I don't know, like a really colloquial way to talk about the sting or a bee stinger or something like that? The stang.
No, the stang referred to a wooden pole that was carried between the shoulders of two people, sort of like just like a guy behind me. And we've got a pole on our shoulders.
Yeah.
And a participant
I'm picturing it, yeah.
And a guy might be sitting on top of that pole, and he would be the stand-in who's like singing and mocking from on high, from a place of power.
Yeah, like a fake horse, like a fake Mustang.
Oh, that never occurred to me. I bet that's what it is.
Listen, I only got it on my mind because we were just talking about cars a couple episodes ago.
we were. That's I'm glad you've learned the word Mustang, Kyle, because you didn't seem to know it in that other episode.
Oh boy.
Riding the stang can also just be an alternate term for chivalry as a whole. You can call it riding the stang.
Riding the stang.
England,
okay.
They often did.
That's interesting because it sounds, I mean, I guess, yeah, sure. It's like a part of the whole revelry.
Yeah. Any of these parts could also be like you could say rough music to mean the whole thing. You could say chivalry, riding the stang. And riding the stang, while that was used up north, down south in the south of England, another alternate term for chivalry was the very similar riding skimmington, or just skimmington.
And who is skimmington, dare I ask?
I'm going to break this word down in reverse. The suffix ton is an imitation of a surname, which is the same way it's used in the word simpleton.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Like Mr. Simple, he's simpleton, that's his name.
Yeah.
The first half of the word is thought to come from a skimming ladle. Do you have an idea what that is?
To skim the fat off of like soups and gravies, perhaps?
Yeah. So it's like a flattish wooden spoon. In this case, it's the kind of thing a wife might use to beat her husband.
Literally, as soon as you said flattish spoon, I said, that's going on some bare buttocks.
You got it. So while skimmington is basically a synonym for chivalry, it is often associated specifically with mockery of a husband who is seen as domineered by his wife.
Okay, sure.
So they're not going after the wife who is abusive. They're going after the husband who's putting up with it.
Right. Yeah, like a real, God, I'm trying to think of examples of that, but they're too sad.
Give us an example.
I like archetypes, but now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough music.
It's rough music. Yeah, they would go after men who were like physically abused by their wives, or whose wives were committing adultery or some other sort of like sinful behavior, and the husband wasn't doing anything about it, wasn't standing up to her. He was seen as weak, so they mocked him for it.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, it's rough.
Oh, God. It's just like, the more and more we learn about history, it's like, I am grateful for what I have today.
Yeah, well, but here's the interesting thing about this. So that practice was common from like the 18th century and earlier. Around the 19th century, it became less common to chivalry men who were seen as weak in their marriages, and instead more common to chivalry men who were abusive in their marriages.
I mean, that's great. Wow.
Yeah, that's
what
like
a real
that's
comeback.
the kind of vigilante justice I could get behind.
Finally, we're going after the right guys.
Yeah, a lot of times people saw it as sort of their responsibility to protect the women in their community by menacing any violent husbands they heard about.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. And I was just like literally just before we started recording, I was coming across like it might have been that like women were doing this more, were making these like riots. In some cases, it might also have been men dressed as women, I guess, like in solidarity.
Yeah. I mean, that's a weird, a different kind of progressivism there, kind of looped in, which is fine, accidental, I feel, but beautiful. nonetheless.
Yeah. And the whole thing was just very much a form of like vigilante justice for these communities at large. Like the whole practice of chivalry was like, there is something wrong with this marriage and we're going to do something about it. And like, to be clear, these were illegal. Chivalries were made illegal in most of these communities in France, England, other places as early as the 1600s. But people just did them anyway because they thought this is we got to take it to the man.
I mean, surely if the government isn't going to do anything about it, somebody's got to beat people with spoons.
That's right. So chivalries were not just a European custom, but a North American one as well, having been brought to Canada by French settlers and to the United States by English settlers. In Canada, it was common in Quebec, Ontario, and the Atlantic coast. In the States, chivalries were a common form of vigilante justice in the frontier and other areas where formal law enforcement was lacking. And they were generally less severe in North America than in Europe. In France and England and other places in the old world, as we've discussed, they're very rough. People were harassed so heavily, it was not uncommon for them to like flee their hometowns. And even sometimes it could lead to murder or suicide.
Oh, God.
It was bad. But in the United States and Canada, it's just sort of lumped in with all the other frontier hijinks that are mildly alarming, but seem to have just been taken in stride.
We love those mountain men.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some wacky cowboys just doing what they do, you know? We all just accept it. Historian Loretta Johnson writes of newlyweds on the frontier being thrown into horse tanks or paraded around town or wheeled around in wheelbarrows or forced to treat protesters to food and drinks. And it seemed to apply to like any newlyweds, not like regardless of their approval rating in the town.
All of this action just sounds like 70% of any Western I've ever watched, honestly.
Theater fans might recall Lori and Curly's wedding in Oklahoma.
Sure. I've never actually watched Oklahoma, but
me
that
neither,
makes sense
but
to me.
Apparently, towards the end of Act 2, there is a chivalry happening. The bride is wheeled around in a wheelbarrow, and there's all sorts of like shenanigans happening.
That sounds theatrical.
It does. It sounds like how I imagine Oklahoma to be.
Yeah. Even if that's a lie, it's real to me, you know?
Yeah. Loretta Johnson also writes, and she writes this in quotes, but with no citation, so I guess maybe it's just like a mock quote. All in fun, it was just a chivalry, you know, and nobody got mad about it. At least, not very mad. It was fine. I think it was fine.
Literally any bully when they're confronted with the deeds that they've done.
Truly.
No one was mad about it, I think.
It was a joke. We were all laughing, except the person we were laughing at. And in Canada, it wasn't even always a derogatory thing. In some cases, it was probably closer to that original French wedding celebration of just like playful pestering. Just to sum up here, Kyle, Charivaris and chivalries are no longer common custom, but they weren't left behind as far back as you might think. On both sides of the Atlantic, there are documented chivalries as late as the early to mid 20th century, although these were indeed of the more good-natured hazing sort, likely leading to the noise-making and newlywed pestering customs that we still have today.
Lovely. Wonderful. I mean, yeah. What an adventure that we took on a stang, from like happiness to sadness to good sadness to happiness again.
It's the stages of grief.
It's the stages of grief, and also a real good movie script. You know,
probably. You want to get this movie script started by using chivalry in a sentence?
Absolutely, more than anything. So when I was in high school, in theater, we didn't do Oklahoma, unfortunately, but we started a custom where the opening night of any performance, there would be a sort of chivalry in which one of the new cast members of the performance would be carried throughout the auditorium, and as we chanted, and then they would be left in a garbage pail at the end.
Crazy. And yes, that is exactly a chivalry.
We called it the sacrifice.
Well, now you can call up the kids, tell them to start calling it this.
Hey, listen to this new sound.
You know that new word you were looking for?
Yeah.
Listen to this. Beautiful, Kyle.
Emily, you filled a hole in my heart. Thank you for chivalry.
Well, Kyle, I hope you have a little more room in your heart for a game.
Yes, please.
Kyle, the game today is called Could You Describe the Ruckus, Sir? That's a Breakfast Club joke.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie in so long.
Honestly, that joke was for one listener in particular, and she knows who she is.
I hope it's Johnny Depp in that movie. Who's in that movie?
Honestly,
that's how I remember it.
I couldn't name a single one of their names.
Is Molly Ringwald in that movie?
Yes, that's the...
There you go. She's listening.
It's for her. Kyle, the term chivalry and its associated terms like skimmington over the years have had some extended uses beyond the ruckus of shame that we've talked about today. Mm-hmm. I've got a few here, and I'm going to ask you some multiple choice questions about them.
All of the above. That's when I answer for each of them, but ask me anyway.
Okay. All right, first one. In the Western Rising riots of 1600s Britain, who was Lady Skimmington? Was Lady Skimmington A, a nickname given to an unpopular noblewoman, B, an alias for the movement's leaders, or C, a slang term for law enforcement?
I'm going to go with C, a slang term for law enforcement. That sounds like appropriately mocking.
It's a good guess, and I was proud of myself when I wrote that.
That's good.
Fake answer. The correct answer was an alias for the leaders of this riot movement. The Western Rising was a protest about changing laws regarding public use of forest lands. Very complicated, too big to dig into right now. But rioters would sometimes dress in women's clothing and parade about as Lady Skimmington. It was sort of a symbol of the revolt. And arrest logs would name the leaders as alias Skimmington.
Oh, because that was like the name that
was
gave?
What they went by. They didn't give their real names. They just said, I'm Lady Skimmington. Next one. In 1830s France, an era of major political instability, what was Les Charivari? Was it A, a magazine of political cartoons and caricatures, B, a specific dance performed by rioters, or C, an opera which was banned from public stages?
Oh, possible. Wow, that's very possible there. Wow, I mean, see, the magazine sounds like so French. 1830s.
There was a lot of regime changes in the 1830s.
Yeah. Early 1800s is probably around the time that...
I think it was like the end of the Bourbon monarchy and something like that.
Yeah. What's-his-face was writing like the Can and all those dumb little operettas.
Kyle's trying to place this in musical history, which is how he sees the world.
So I could see that being possible. That does sound like an operetta, like a light opera, but it also but like the magazine could be too modern. I'm gonna go with the opera. I'm gonna go with C, unless that's a
you
trick
again
for me. Darn it!
That was a targeted shot at Kyle, and he fell for it.
I thought it was an Offenbach.
Your first instinct was correct. It was a magazine. Le Charivari responded to France's shifts in regime with hilarious political cartoons and caricatures until such publications were banned in 1835. So the magazine switched to more everyday satire and not politically leaning. It had an English counterpart called Punch, the London Charivari.
Oh, I feel like Punch magazine I've heard of. And not just because I drink a lot of fruit juices. Which
a lot of fruit juices, yeah. All right, we'll see if I can get you a third time, Kyle. Today, you might hear the word Charivari or chivalry describing what? A, the noise making at midnight on New Year's. B, the parade of performers that opens a circus show. Or C, the chants of cheerleaders at a sporting event.
Those are all really good. Really good answers.
I had a good time making this quiz.
Yeah, you should be like a game show writer, you know?
Quiz master?
A quiz master. The cheerleading, that word just sounds too uppity for cheerleading. I can't imagine them using it. Noise making, I mean, that goes with what I was saying about what I do on New Year's. But that could be just you trying to get me again, because you know everything that me and my family does. I mean, I don't know. Circuses, clowns, mimes. Mimes are French. I'm going to go with circus.
You got it, Kyle. You finally got one. I'm so proud of you. So probably all of those things could be called a charivari. They all fit the mold. But it is common for the opening act of a circus show, which might involve loud music, tumbling of clowns, large animals, other stupendous sights and sounds, to be referred to as the charivari or the charivari act.
I love that. It makes me want to go to a carnival now, to a circus.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go right now. But first, Kyle, we have to send the people off. Send them off. I'm done with them now.
Yes. They've got their bags of half-empty popcorn and the peanut shells that they tossed
from
at the elephants.
Cracker Jack box.
Yeah. All right. The clowns are taking off their makeup. Everybody go home. But before you go, remember that you can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips, and you can find Butter No Parsnips on other social media as well, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips Podcast, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if you like today's episode, consider giving us a 5-star rating or review wherever you heard us.
And if you really like today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon, patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast.
Thanks so much to all of you. You help us make what we make.
And with that, I've been Emily Moyers.
And I've been Kyle Imperator, and this has been Butter No Parsnips.
Butter No Parsnips is produced by Seth Glicksman, Kyle Imperator, and myself, Emily Moyers. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperator.